17th of July 2024. This skidmark of mine, I'm going to talk about tribes again. And it is my opinion, as I have said it many times, that it is only the tribes that can survive. When I made my first skidmarks and started talking about going tribal, I got a lot of resistance and I got a lot of nasty comments about it. That was a year ago. But the way things are developing, it is quite obvious that now more and more people are realizing the reality of tribes. That is a fact. You see it all over Europe, North America, and the USA. People are beginning to realize that what we have today is fatal for specifically white people. I want you to listen to this. This is an extract of a speech that Eva Vlaarderenbroek made in Hungary. Listen carefully to what she is saying.
Let me walk you through the past 7 days in Europe. This week in Stockholm, 3 elderly women in their 70s were stabbed in broad daylight on the streets. In London, 4 people were stabbed in a time span of just 42 hours. In Paris, hundreds of African migrants took to the street to riot. And in Briekmerke, also in France, yet another church was burned down to the ground. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just a few incidents in just a couple of days on our beautiful continent. Our new reality in Europe consists of frequent rapes, stabbings, killings, murders, shootings, even beheadings. But let me be clear about one thing. This did not used to happen before. This is a newly imported problem. When another white boy or a white girl dies at the hand of an immigrant, we might shake our head, we might let out a sigh, we might even get angry for a minute or two, and then we go on with our lives. We offer the family thoughts and prayers, but nothing ever changes. This is a response of a society that has already given up, a society that has already accepted its defeat. I know one thing for sure, and that is that if nothing changes, if we don't start to seriously fight for our continent, for our religion, for our people, our countries, then this time that we live in will go down in history as the time in which Western nations no longer had to get invaded by hostile armies in order to be conquered. This time will then go down in history as the period in which the invader was actively invited in by a corrupt elite. And not only did this corrupt elite invite the enemy in, they made the native population pay for it too. Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion: the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion: native population majorly outnumbered. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory. It's reality. So what in the world is wrong with our leaders? Consciously or unconsciously, they have sucked up the lies and the anti-white dogmas of the neo-Marxist critical race theory. Our way of life, our Christian religion, our nations, they have to go, without exception. Their vision of the future is the neoliberal, unrecognizable Europe, where every city becomes kind of like Brussels. Ugly, dirty, unsafe, zero social cohesion.
Now, if you paid attention to her words, you would realize that the white Europeans are in grave danger. But to emphasize that, listen to what this migrant in Ireland is saying.
Shut the fuck up, you racist little piece of shit. I hope migrants take your fucking houses, your wives, and your fucking cars, you little pieces of shit. Displacing people like you own the fucking world. This is not your fucking world. None of you own this world. Ireland does not own the planet.
Now, one of the things that he mentioned is take their women. For fuck's sakes. If people cannot see what is planned for us, the white people. And now I'm coming back to my opinion of it is only the tribes that can survive. To many people, it sounds absolutely ridiculous for a guy to say in 2024, we have to go tribal. The problem is, in their fucking warped minds, they see a thing with a bone through the nose. That is tribal. That is utter bullshit. When I say tribal, I am talking about the reality that people, like-minded people, will have to stand together. And incidentally, it is not only for the whites. Yeah, it is extremely important that the whites take note. But the black tribes are under the same pressure. Why is that? Because my XXX, and I suggest you go onto my Rumble channel and go and listen to the video that I made about XXX, who and what that is, because I cannot publish that on YouTube for obvious reasons. Listen to what I'm telling you there. And I'm going to refer a lot to XXX in this video. You have to understand that they have a plan that they are working on. And it comes from hundreds of years back. It didn't start now. This is a long-term plan. Because the end goal of that plan is to have the earth inhabited by dumb, cultureless drones that the elite, that XXX, can control and do with what they like. Now, an important reality is, it is easy to say, let's go tribal. And Eva Maids in her speech, she mentions herself, we have to fight. But I am afraid that her concept of fight is in line with the modern concept of fighting. These fuckers, they think they can tweet and make TikToks and be on Twitter and be on Facebook and make all sorts of stories and keyboard warriors, and they're fighting. They can't even fucking fight for breath. The reality is, the white people in Europe is confronted with physical violence. So they will have to respond physically. Tweeting and making TikToks is not going to help anything. Now, what is important about tribes? The big thing, the biggest strength of the tribes is that it is a collection of people that are like-minded. And now you must understand, XXX has built their security forces and police forces and everything. You saw it in action during the pestilence. They fucking unleash it on the population like that. Choop. But now you must also take in consideration those things, yes, I call them fucking things, that is unleashed on the population. Those things are soldiers. The tribes has warriors. There's a major difference between a soldier and a warrior. A soldier executes commands. A warrior fights for what is right. And warriors are not stoppable. Warriors don't know that word of surrender, because the warrior knows if he surrenders, he's dead. So, for the Europeans, you will have to go tribal if you want to survive. Eva has given some statistics. I mean, your cities, more than 50% are no longer indigenous people of those countries. More than 50%. You will have to go and look at the history and look at what Karl Martel did. And you will have to get inspiration from him and do what he did. There is no fucking way that you can negotiate yourselves out of this shit. And if you want to see a horror story of what XXX is manufacturing for you, look at what they're doing in the Ukraine. You guys call him Zelensky, I call him Pestelensky. That fucking Pestelensky is part of XXX. And he is wiping out the men in the Ukraine. They're using the Russians to do the wipeout for them. And this is not the fault of the Russians. The Russians are defending themselves. But they're wiping out the men in the Ukraine. What is the result going to be? You can already see it happening, parts of it happening. There is no longer men in the villages, in the towns, to protect the women. Those women are unprotected. Many of those women are struggling to survive. And in the process, children gets neglected because the mother is fighting for survival. And she cannot pay attention to the children like she's supposed to. And all of a sudden, the children is now easy prey for the human traffickers. What happens to the children? They are taken, they're sold on the markets for either pedophile rings or the organ harvesters. Many of those children are kept in captivity and tormented like you cannot believe, to drain adrenochrome from them. That is already happening there. And I have asked the question many times, what the fuck is there in the Ukraine that the West is willing to bankrupt themselves and disarm themselves to protect it? This is a big part of it, because that human trafficking is huge business. Huge business. The Russians have saved hundreds of kids out of the claws of the traffickers, and they took them to Russia, to places of safety. And you get that bogus fucking ICC warrant for arrest for Putin because he abducts children. But there are videos of parents from Ukraine that went to Russia and looked for their children. And the Russians help them to find their children, reunite the families, and then help those families to get into Lithuania or Latvia or whatever. There's video evidence of it. But now, Putin abducts children. Fuck that. What you Europeans have to understand, in the whole of Europe, there is only one country where white people, children, and women are safe, and that is Russia, because their president is using the country's military force to protect them. Hungary, Viktor Orban, is fighting for his people, but he is extremely exposed because he's in that fucking EU. Now, you Europeans were stupid enough, yes, fucking stupid enough, to allow the liberals to construct the EU-SSR, and you supported them and cheered them on. And today, that Politburo, that EU Politburo, sitting in Brussels, is fucking all your lives. but you're too dumb to realize that you are now the EU-SSR. And if me, a boer from South Africa, says it, you think I'm off my fucking rocker. But you should get on a plane and come to South Africa and come and see what the fuck is waiting for you in your future. That is what you should do. But you guys are fast asleep. Fast asleep. Who threw the floodgates open for the migrants? Angela Merkel. She opened that floodgates. But here comes a shit that you have to keep in mind. Muammar Gaddafi, he was keeping the African migrants out of Europe because he fucked them up if they came into Libya. And XXX didn't like that. So what happened? The XXX machinery, NATO, destroyed Libya and killed Gaddafi. And today they're flooding into Italy by the millions. All of them, well, most of them, departs from Libya. On the other end, you've got Viktor Orban, Turkey. Now I can't remember the fucking oak's name. He is blocking migrants that comes up from the Middle East. Now, as long as he blocks them there, the migrants are left with the option to go on the eastern shore of the Black Sea. But they've got a major fucking problem there. They will land in Russia, and the Russians are not going to allow them in. So they're effectively blocked basically there. Some of them come from some of the Kazakhstan and those places. They trickle in there and then they make their way. And they eventually end up in Belarus on the Polish border, and then they want to go into Poland. And that's where they get big problems. But you must understand, Erdogan, that's it, the guy in Turkey. And here's something that many of you wouldn't know. There's a few 100,000 migrants currently in camps in Turkey. And the EU is paying Erdogan big money every month to keep them there. Now just imagine, Erdogan decides, no, you don't want that money, and opens a gate so that the people go in. And he floods Greece with thousands of migrants. It's a ticking time bomb. So you Europeans, you've got a big fucking problem. I don't know how you're going to clean your countries out again. It might be impossible. It's not impossible, it can be done. But it's going to take raw guts and determination. And it's going to take men to do it. Not these fucking wimps that don't know what a woman is. You're going to need men to do that. And you'll have to clean your countries with a fucking broom. If you don't do it, you are done. Now, here in South Africa, we had a prophet, a seer, and he saw a vast number of Europeans streaming to South Africa. You can go and read his stuff, Siener van Rensburg and Johanna Brandt. You can go and read their stuff. You can go and read G.A. Watermeyer. They all talk about that. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the reality of today, you ordinary Europeans, you're fucked, whether you like it or not. Look what XXX has done with you now in the past 2 years. Look what they did. They deindustrialized Germany. Your economies are fucked. Your countries are bankrupt. An old age pensioner of any one of those countries must be very careful to survive on his pension. A pension that he gets from having worked a lifetime for the country and the community. They bring these fucking migrants in there. They give them cell phones, they give them hotel rooms, they give them the best fucking food, whatever, and they give them, I believe, I heard some stories, 30 euros a day for pocket money. Who the fuck is paying that? You must keep your minds focused on that. Your extermination is planned. And the plan is unfolding right in front of your eyes. And what stuns me is you guys. are tweeting and TikToking about it. You don't understand. If you look at Eva, that wonderful lady standing there with that fantastic long blonde hair, that is something that's going to disappear in Europe. Your country is going to be filled with half-breeds. That is what will be there. That is what XXX has planned and want there. I cannot go into too much details because then I'm fucked. You know that. But you have to understand, your end is already planned. And it is only the tribes that can stand up and make sure they have a future. Because no fucking government will ever be able to help you. They are all compromised beyond repair. All of them. Every politician. Everyone. If you place your hope on politicians, you are stupid. Beyond stupid. Because the politician species was developed and created over the past 50 years specifically to serve the XXX masters. Don't ever forget that. You need a tribal council to tell you how to run your tribe's land. You guys have still got big numbers. You are getting into the minority stage, but it is touch and go. So you can still resist effectively. If you land into the position that my tribe is in, where we are about 3% of the population, you're fucked. Now you can think that, okay, but you Boere is also fucked. All I can say to you, the Boer warriors has got a fucking history that will tell you we don't care about numbers. Never forget that. So don't bluff yourself and think your 50% or 45% mostly is still way off better than us. Your fucking problem is you guys can't fight. You haven't been in a real fucking fight for your life in the past 70 years. That's basically almost 2 generations. There's a whole generation of yours that don't know what a fight is. I see the videos of how these migrants fuck your young men and you're up in the streets, on the stations, everywhere. Weaklings. They dress that you don't even know what the fuck is that, a man or a woman or a thing. You don't know. Those are the things that a woman like Eva must depend on to defend her. She's going to be better off defending herself. And she'll most probably do a better job than those fucking things that are walking around in your streets calling themselves I don't know what. And people think, yeah, but those are the young men that are supposed to protect. Fucking what? Yeah? The migrants are going to fucking slaughter them. So, you can be as upset as you like. You can call me whatever names you like. But you have to pay fucking attention to what I'm telling you. If Europe does not go tribal, you're gone. Gone! That is a reality that you will have to face. And it's already happening around you, and I'm going to refer you back to the fucking horror story that is happening in the Ukraine. Now, you must now understand that there is now thousands of women in the Ukraine with no men to protect them. The next step, God forbid that, XXX is going to unleash some of those migrants onto those defenseless women. And they're going to breed the Ukrainians out of existence. Go back and look at that video of that fucking migrant in Ireland. He says clearly, take their women. I have bad news for you guys. You will actually have to fight yourself out of this shit. You're not going to tweet yourself out of this shit. You're not going to vote yourself out of this shit. You will have to fight yourself out of this shit. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.